Welcome back. Now, I've been doing my annual rewatch of Gilmore Girls. Who's surprised at this point? Certainly not me. I bet you guys were just waiting for this video and you knew it was coming because clearly I've just got a problem, right? And I cannot stay away from this show. Like, I don't know what kind of a grip this show has on me, but no matter how hard I try, it's just, I can't stay away. But I realized I've never talked about class in Gilmore Girls. And here's the thing. Gilmore Girls has a huge theme of love and class throughout the show, to the point that I actually applaud it because other shows wouldn't even address this topic. And I think it's pretty cool that Gilmore Girls addresses it at all, because how often does it happen you come across a show that actually touches on these topics? And it's not like a small thing, by the way. Class comes up in almost every single episode. Since the first episode, this is a recurring theme. It's like a big deal. So today we're talking about Gilmore Girls and class. The series constantly asks what happens when privilege and extreme wealth collides with small town values. Today, we're unpacking Lorelai's rejection of her wealthy roots, Rory's suitors, and what it says about the men we choose in terms of class, and the symbolism of Stars Hollow, as well as, honestly, the two main women's privilege, because there's nothing wrong with being privileged and using it. I mean, it's a competitive world. If you have any privilege at all, you should use it. You may as well if you have any kind of advantage, but it's more like their complete lack of awareness and appreciation of what they have compared to other people. The lack of gratefulness, dare I say, that kind of rubs me the wrong way, because they don't really seem to appreciate or even register how lucky they are. And it really seems, honestly, when it comes to both Rory and Lorelai, that they whip out their Gilmore Girls status card whenever it suits them and whenever it's convenient. But then when they need to appear relatable, like small town girls, then they'll also whip out that card whenever it's convenient for them, because technically they're connected to both backgrounds, but that's not really fair, you know what I mean? And you kind of need to pick a side at one point. And there's always a big theme throughout the show of Lorelai saying that she wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth like Logan, and she worked hard for everything that she got. And it really doesn't take into account her upward mobility in society. And honestly, is it even true? I mean, yes and no. But definitely, the problem is that these women behave in such out of touch ways at times, which is fine, we all do sometimes, but no one ever calls them out on it. We're encouraged to side with them, even when in some of these situations, especially in Rory's case, they're just blatantly, they couldn't be more wrong and more out of touch, and yet we're expected to be on their side. But most of the time we're really not in certain situations involving money, right? So that's what we're talking about today. Stars Hollow is more than just the setting of the show. It's meant to be the antithesis of Hartford society and all of the upper class places like Chilton and Yale. Stars Hollow is meant to symbolize that earthy place where Lorelai and Rory live, where people barter, they gossip, they have really close-knit communities, they're really grounded and honestly really authentic, and there's a big emphasis on the community, right, and being there for each other and the town meetings.
What I miss? Taylor Dosey wants the no parking zone in front of the store removed. He says his customers are being unfairly ticketed.
No, it's just because he wants to park there all day.
Genius.
Lorelai really clings to this world to protect herself, and one of the cool things about Lorelai is that she's always prided herself on the fact that she found her old life just stifling and suffocating, and she chose to humble herself, to reject that claustrophobic, controlling world of her parents, and she wanted to be somewhere humbling, like Stars Hollow, where, she worked as a maid, and then she bought and she started managing an inn, and then later on she buys her own inn and renovates it, and she's very hands-on, and she worked her way up as a single mom, which is obviously like very underprivileged when you're a single mom, right? You've had no support. So she feels in a way like she now is one of them. She's one of the Stars Hollow people because she rejected that old life. She wants nothing to do with it. Her parents are very rich, but they didn't treat her good and they told her what to do. And she was like, you know what? I don't want that. I don't want their money. I don't want any relationship with them. I would rather just do it myself. So she buys a house, which I guess would be like worth around maybe 2 million today, which is a little unrealistic with like I think the salary that she would have earned as a manager at an inn, that she could have afforded a house like that big and that nice, but whatever, let's just go with it. So she genuinely wants to think that she's made it on her own, and I don't want to not acknowledge that. In some ways she has, like she genuinely had a very hard life, and it is hard, like when you're working as, let's say, a maid, you're managing an inn and you need someone to watch the kid, and thank God the community kind of helped raise Rory, so they would have helped look after her a little bit when Lorelai was working, for example. So yeah, Lorelai definitely feels that she has been independent in a way, and she's like made it on her own. And she loves this town, she loves these people, like this feels like her home, right? She doesn't want to think of herself as a Gilmore, she feels like a resident of Stars Hollow. And the experience that Rory had growing up was not one of extreme privilege. Until she was like 16 and reconnected with her grandparents and learned how rich they are, Rory had no concept really of like extreme like privilege. Like she was hardly suffering, like her mom took care of everything, but she just considered herself as kind of middle class and having like a nice life, and that was like the experience that she knew growing up.
What is your offspring doing?
I need stamps. Can I have these?
No.
Take them. Hey, have Michelle look at your French paper before you go.
Excuse me.
That'd be great.
No.
Come on, Michelle. I'll tell all the ladies what a stud you are.
But the town of Stars Hollow is also idealized because obviously it's not really like a realistic working class experience. Like it's kind of like a fantasy where everyone survives, you know, comfortably. No one seems to be really struggling. But the interesting thing is that the super rich characters, like the grandparents, Richard and Emily, seem to live very boring, cushy, but yet isolated lives.
And this hay bale maze, this is all Taylor's idea.
Yep.
And it's the same Taylor who is town selectman and owns 2 businesses.
Yeah, he's basically the mayor of Stars Hollow and the Don Corleone all wrapped up into one.
That's fascinating.
They don't seem grounded, like they don't have that sense of community where people look out for each other, and they seem, yeah, like honestly, they're not having the most fun time, and a lot of the events they go to are depicted as just very surface level and shallow, which I also find interesting. But this gets me into our first section, which is Lorelai's rejection of wealth versus her reliance on it. And this is perhaps my biggest issue with the whole aesthetics of like the working class in Gilmore Girls, right? Is that for the purpose of Lorelai being relatable to the audience, we see that she's in on pop culture, she has great humor, she reads all the cool books, and she likes doing cool things. And so we kind of relate to her because she seems like one of us, you know, and she seems super quirky and authentic because she's run away from her parents' life and rejected it, right? The mansions, the country clubs, the debutante balls. Every time her mom tries to bring her like a nice gift, like some expensive gift like Cartier, she like throws it in the bin. Like she doesn't want any of that stuff, right?
You are one of the investors.
I get a check?
You get a check.
Wow, that's... $75,000?
Yes, it is.
And she wants to feel free. So we're meant to kind of relate to her and think, oh, you know, she's so quirky. She's, you know, she's not like that at all. But the interesting thing is that whether Lorelai likes it or not, she very much so is a Gilmore. And this was one thing that I always found so funny about, like, for example, when she met Logan, Rory's rich boyfriend, Logan is so similar to her. Like, he's tried to not work for his dad's company, to start his own path, to not just be like living the super privileged life, to kind of travel a bit and do things his own way and not just follow in the footsteps of his father. He's a trust fund kid who's trying to be his own person because his home life was so restrictive. He tries to like really warm up to Lorelai and kind of connect with her and compliment her, and she's being like so guarded and distrustful of him, which I thought was so funny, because if there's anyone that she maybe should have liked, surely it should have been Logan, right? Because in so many ways, like, they're literally cut from the same cloth.
Hi.
Hello.
I was gonna call you, but then I figured you wouldn't take the call.
Yeah, you figured right.
So Lorelai's whole deal really seems to be pride versus money. She's very, very prideful. She doesn't want to see herself as a Gilmore. But she also wants to have her cake and eat it too, right? Because that's the thing, is when it comes down to it, she wants the money from her parents, like if push comes to shove. And I think the best example is in the pilot when she accepts a lot of money to pay for Rory's education at Chilton. She doesn't really want to because she's sort of emotionally blackmailed into these Friday night dinners she feels now obligated to go to. But ultimately, she didn't really feel that she could pay for it herself, which is all well and good, and it sounds like a very stressful situation. But the weird thing is we never actually see her saving to try and pay back her dad so she doesn't owe him something, right? In fact, we don't see her saving money at all, which I find strange because the whole concept is that she's going to pay him back at some point, but we don't see her like working towards that goal, right?
I get $75,000 for being born?
I thought it would be a pleasant surprise.
This is $75,000. Do you have a pen?
Why, yes, I do.
$75,000.
And I always find it odd how she critiques Emily and Richard's privilege so much, right? While still benefiting from it. Like, you can't deny that's what she's doing, is she's benefiting, right? Like, it's fine to take money, of course, if you need to take some. But the weird thing is that she takes the money and then she struts around like she did it all herself, when that's just not the case, you know? And to be honest, I think it was wrong for this kind of financial abuse for her to be blackmailed into these Friday night dinners if she's not comfortable going. But also, like, she acted like it was like the most horrendous thing ever. I do think Friday night was an inconvenient time. But at the same time, like, if they are paying like a lot of money for Rory's education, I get that they also want a relationship with their granddaughter, and maybe seeing her once a week for a dinner is like a nice way for them to talk about like how her school is going. I mean, since they're paying so much money for her school, it seems a shame like for them to also like not see how she's doing. Like taking the money and leaving and never speaking to them again also seems kind of weird. And I also feel like, especially because Emily knows where they live, so at any point she could have shown up unannounced and just barged in on Lorelai prior, and she didn't, you know, she gave her space.
Hey, Grandma.
Well, you're right on time.
Yeah, no traffic at all.
I can't tell you what a treat it is to have you girls here.
Oh, well, we're excited too.
So I do think that the way rich people are portrayed in this show is a little bit strange. Like, Richard and Emily just seem really shallow and weird. And then as for Logan, he's an amazing person, but like his money is kind of made into like his entire personality, you know? I do think though it's interesting throughout the show how much you see that you cannot escape who you are. And Lorelai tries so hard to avoid that life and have Rory be this perfect girl and have Rory be, you know, self-made and an entrepreneur like her, or someone who does her own path and someone who isn't shallow. And yet Rory ends up being so shallow like her parents and spoiled. And no matter how hard Lorelai tries, it still ends up happening where the money like corrupts her, and she's being pushed to do a traditional education at Yale, and also she ends up using money when she needs it at multiple points. Like, they save her house from termites. Rory's place at Yale was really due to her grandfather's connections and him being friends with the dean. So it's funny because, like, yeah, they worked hard, but it certainly makes it easier when your grandfather is an alumni and he can help write you a reference, right, and get you into the university of your dreams.
I need money.
You need money.
For Yale.
You need money for Yale.
Stop repeating everything she says.
I'm sorry, I'm processing.
I just think that the way that Lorelai is crafted as a character is strange. Like, she claims that she was working random jobs like as a maid before her work at the Independence Inn, but yet whenever I see the way that Lorelai treats people like Fran, who owns the cake shop, or how she treats hospital staff with such disrespect and often like yelling at them or just like being kind of snappy and rushing them, she doesn't talk to them as if she's someone that has been in their positions. She barked at teachers too, and she also messed around this wedding planner and let her lose her job without stepping in to help her. So it was really strangely hypocritical for me, at least, because I thought she would have had like more empathy as someone who was in like a similar position herself.
He's a little groggy right now.
But what's going on? How are the tests?
The doctor have to tell you that. I'm just a transport guy.
Well, when is the doctor coming up?
And I think it's like one thing to criticize Emily and Richard and say like how privileged they are and, you know, how out of touch they are and how you're never going to be like them, but also like she is like them. And even if she earns her own money, which is great and obviously very brave, and it should be acknowledged like how hard she worked, at the same time, like she knows that if she does need money, she can ask them and they will give it. And when they die, she will get a huge inheritance as like the only child, and she knows that. And that kind of security and safety net is something that most people will never have to fall back on. This gets me into Rory's privilege, because she can also never fully leave that rich, fancy world behind. And Rory's entire trajectory proves that she cannot escape the influence and the allure of the money.
And if there's one thing I have very little tolerance for, it's rich, privileged children viewing the world as their private playground. I don't care who you are. I don't care who your family is. When you commit a crime, Miss Gilmore, there must be consequences.
You can see that for Emily Gilmore, it wasn't just about paying tuition, it was about getting Rory into the world. And you see that with the coming out party she throws for Rory, with all the debutantes and all the eligible young men. And it wasn't about checking if Rory wanted that. It was about doing her procedure of making sure that Rory is integrated into high society. And because of that, from the first season, you see this effect of privilege and being completely spoiled by her grandmother creeping in on Rory. Like she's getting a parking spot bought for her at Chilton, they're going to buy her a car and all these things, and having money offered to her. And you see this starting to creep in over time and like influence her, right? Even in season 1. She starts to like quietly absorb it and engage in behaviors that people would find maybe a little out of touch, but like nothing damning. It's not like the biggest deal. Like a few comments maybe, nothing major. Cheated on her boyfriend, but you could have pinned that down to being a stupid teenager. But then when she hits her college years, this is when you really see like the kind of adult she's become, and this is when things go completely like off the rail. Like she's home wrecking, she's dropping out of Yale, she's stealing a yacht, she's acting like, no, a boat, but she's acting like actions just don't apply to her. Consequences, never heard of them. And the thing is, she doesn't need Logan to do that for her. Like that's just her doing it on her own.
You understand that you're pleading guilty to criminal mischief in the 3rd degree in violation of section 117A of the Penal Code?
Yes, Your Honor.
Imagine being so oblivious that your rich boyfriend, Logan Huntzberger, has to tell you that you are in fact one of the rich kids. One of my favorite scenes from the entirety of Gilmore Girls is Logan telling Rory like, oh, you're Joe bus driver? Like, you're one of us. Like, what are you even talking about? And she's like rolling her eyes and like ignoring all his points, but like his points are true. Even if he's not saying it in the nicest way, like she was being completely ridiculous because she was acting as if she was some sort of moral outsider who's like not a trust fund kid at all and is like judging their actions with this sort of moral superiority of all these rich kids at Yale. And Logan was like, but why? Like you're also a trust fund kid. Now, there's nothing wrong with writing an article critiquing the elite, right? And the article was probably really good. Like it was probably really interesting as well because there's not many people that have access to these high society events in the first place and can get their foot in through the door. But I think it's also the lack of self-awareness where she acknowledges how she even got access to that event in the first place.
And you're Joe bus driver.
Well, no,
exactly. I mean, where do you get off acting all morally superior?
That is not what I intended to say at all.
You clearly think you are. Why? Because you read Ironweed? Because you saw Norma Ray?
She knows the Gilmore Girls name carries weight as well. Like she knows what it means. Like she wants to cling to this idea of her being a normal small town girl. She tells Logan like, my background wasn't like your background, I'm different. But like it doesn't matter though, like what your childhood was like or that your family's not as rich as Logan's, because at the end of the day, like she is going to get a large inheritance And whenever she gets in trouble or she steals a boat, suddenly she remembers that, you know, she's a Gilmore apparently, and it changes, like even her sentence from the judge is way less harsh because of the fact that they know she's a Gilmore. So she's constantly experiencing privilege.
I understand that a plea agreement has been reached.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Miss Gilmore, please stand.
And I don't care like if she critiques the Life and Death Brigade, if she critiques high society events, but the thing is, if she truly believes that she is above Logan, that she's better than him and his rich spoiled friends, okay, she wouldn't have dated him. She wouldn't have moved in with him and gotten free rent, as he points out. She wouldn't have let them make fun of Marty and be classist towards him. Like, she wouldn't have looked down on Dean. She wouldn't have treated Dean as if he was less than. Like, so she clearly does know that she is one of the rich kids, right? And that's the problem, is that Rory takes out the privilege card whenever it seems useful to her.
But I don't know what the hell I was thinking.
What are you talking about?
You don't want to be with me, Rory.
Yes, I do.
Oh, please.
She's never really had to suffer. She hasn't had to work 3 jobs alongside uni or alongside school like Dean. She apparently can just drop out of Yale because she can't handle it whenever she wants, like a loser, with no backup plan, with no plans to work, and then goes to live in a beautiful upgraded apartment with Richard and Emily, basically with 0 consequences. Not being homeless, just gets to move in with them.
I've decided that I'm not going back to Yale next year.
And doesn't listen to what her mum says. And that tends to be the main issue with Rory, is that the whole of Stars Hollow, like, mollycoddles her as well. So she definitely never experiences, like, real consequences. And this gets me into how that affects her boyfriends in the show and what Gilmore Girls says about love, right? Because she dates 3 men throughout the show. One's Logan, who's like the rich trust fund kid, right? And the other 2, Dean is like working class, but like has like, you know, a nice family. And then Jess is like really struggles and has like truly like a very different background to Rory's, with a neglectful, absent mother, a father who doesn't want him, literally went homeless for a bit. So like multiple completely different scenarios, right? But if we look at Dean, he symbolizes like Rory's first love, the small town first boyfriend. He was a really good first boyfriend, someone who's safe and grounded and kind. And there's nothing wrong with like him being like working class and like being like limited in resources and him having to work. But the problem with Dean was that he was kind of limited in ambition. Like, he didn't really have a plan, and he was smart. Like, he could build a car with his bare hands. That boy was smart. But the main issue with Dean was kind of like a lack of clarity around like what he wanted to do with his life. But I always found it really unattractive how Rory like judged him. Like, she judged him for not being able to like go to Yale, even though, or university, even though literally he couldn't afford it. Like, he had to work, and she acts as if that's like beneath her in some way. And my main issue is that Dean is done so dirty by the writers and by the entire fan base, and everyone is so harsh on him. But the truth is that the narrative is very classist towards Dean, and it was set up against him like from the start in just a really unfair way, where I feel like he gets such harsh consequences and punishment compared to Rory. Like, they're both emotional teenagers, and often he just responds with emotions like a normal teenage boy would, where he cares and he gets upset. He's experiencing his first real genuine heartbreak, so of course he's going to be like a little bit emotional, especially when his girlfriend is like not communicating with him or emotionally cheating on him. And yet he's so like villainized for like having just genuine emotional like reactions. Like, apparently he's not meant to have emotions, and like he's just meant to like mollycoddle Rory and like never express an opinion. And then we cut Rory so much slack for just being like genuinely a terrible girlfriend, and for never going to any of his events, never taking any interest in his hobbies. And that's the thing, is that the narrative was pitted against Dean from the start. Like, in season 1 we see that, okay, he may not be ambitious and it's like a big issue, but he's very smart, he's very well read, he has a lot of soft and hard skills.
Dean, that's amazing.
Let's drive. Can we drive? Does it drive?
Does it drive?
Well, no, I know it drives, but oh my God, I can't believe you finished it. You built me a car.
Dee, now that you're done with that, will you build me a plane?
Suddenly, they remove all of those character traits from him in season 2 and they give those traits to Jess. They completely dumb Dean down and they make it seem like he doesn't have any intellectual thought, or he simply doesn't like understand anything or how things work. And they give his sort of bad boy, rough around the edges persona to Jess. And I just felt like that was really unfair, because you're robbing Dean of his chance to, you know, prove himself. And they also frame it as like Dean isn't good enough for Rory. The way Richard speaks to him is disgusting. He's like, you're not good enough for my daughter. She shouldn't associate with you. The way Luke treats him is disgusting, and you'd think that Luke would see that they're similar and both from the same background and support him, but no, Luke's like determined to hate him, right? And there's just this idea set up that the whole town's bullying Dean because he's not good enough for Rory, and Dean like doesn't attend Rory's coming out party, which kind of is meant to symbolize this social divide between them, right? And the fact that the relationship will fail, right? And we see that later on, is this idea that like Dean's not good enough for Rory. And I always thought, but like, why not though? Like, why? You know, what's the problem?
I just want to put some notes in the margins for you.
What? You've read this before.
About 40 times.
I thought you said you didn't read much.
Well, what is much?
And from the first season, we see that he works at a grocery store, which is a reality most viewers can relate to. He's not aiming for an Ivy League education. You know, 2 jobs, extra shifts, all to secure a nice townhouse for himself and his wife. And we only really see when they get back together in season 4, this kind of big socio-economic gap between them, which wasn't really as obvious before, but it's like when they're having a date in the break room at the supermarket because Dean can't find time between shifts. He can't pay to have time with her, right? And she's asking about this article she read about high society, and he has no points to offer. He's like, I'm not really a writer either, so I can't really like critique or give feedback on your article. And they both seem like really bored with each other.
So, no tomorrow night. Bummer. How about Saturday?
Saturday, I'm here. What about next week? I've got Tuesday and Wednesdays off.
I have this article and I'm already behind on my reading. Next weekend?
I just thought it was, yeah, like kind of unfair, because we saw how smart he was in season 1. And then when things really fall apart, I mean, there were always issues before when he went to Chilton and people like, he didn't know how to get a suit and people treated him like he wasn't good enough. But the real issue came to like season 4 with Rory's debutante party that Emily threw for her kind of without permission, because Dean shows up and Rory's like, oh, let's get out of here. Like, you can pick me up. Let's go. Like, this is a total bust. And Dean's like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here, do I? And honestly, fair enough, because Rory's all dressed up and she's been paraded into the sea of young men like a piece of meat, of eligible bachelors, even though everyone knows she's got a boyfriend, which is so disrespectful. And then when she runs outside, Dean probably just sees her with a group of guys like Logan, all laughing, all rich eligible bachelors. And Dean realizes that not only is this awkward, A, but B, he truly can't relate to her lifestyle anymore. And it's like he's decided he needs to stop pretending to be good enough for her anymore. But like, for me, at least as a viewer, that kind of hurt in my heart, because I was like, but why not? And why is everyone telling him that he's not good enough for Rory and he needs to give up on her? Like, and why is Luke telling him to give up on her? Luke technically isn't good enough for Lorelai. It didn't stop him from marrying her and going for it. So why does Dean have to give up, you know?
Hi. I'm sorry, have you been waiting long? I didn't have a watch and we were in the pool house. These are some friends. They go to Yale with me and they know my grandparents. The party was so boring, so we... Is that a new shirt? Because I like it.
What am I doing here, Rory?
And that's the thing, like, let's be real. Rory wasn't trying at all. She checked out on Dean the moment she realized that she kind of liked Logan. I think she kind of knew it wasn't working. It was almost like out of politeness or obligation, in the same way that she checked out on him when she met Jess. Like, she just used that boy. Like, and Dean knew it too. He was in borrowed time from the start. And I feel like a lot of people criticize Dean for like publicly humiliating her and breaking up with her in public situations. Oh, because he's making it awkward. It's like, what was he supposed to do, first of all? And second of all, like the hate he gets is like a bit much. Like, sure, he's not perfect. He definitely was too possessive. But like, I think anyone in his position would have felt like really, really uncomfortable when you're being told like you're not good enough for my daughter based on some preconceived judgment I have about you. Like, that must not feel good. And I find that really interesting, especially when you compare him to Jess, because here's the thing, I don't like Jess's character. Like, hot take, like I feel like he did grow a lot, he got his shit together, he improved a lot, but he did not treat Rory good ever at any point. I don't know why this relationship is so romanticized, just because the actor's hot, literally. But Jess's storyline is heartbreaking if you look at it through a class lens, because the show constantly acts like he's like worthless because he didn't graduate high school. But he was like a neglected kid. He was bounced from home to home. He tried to like survive. That's why he was working at Walmart. That's why he was skipping class to work. And yet everyone in the town is like laughing at him and being mean when all he needed was like therapy and help. Like, his mom is like this drug user who abandoned him. And okay, like he didn't behave well. He was rebellious. But like, also people have these insanely high expectations for him.
And if someone calls in sick, and they always do, Jess is there even if he's already done 40 hours that week.
Wow, I am so... 40 hours? He never works 40 hours.
More like 45, that's what I'm saying. Good boy, that one.
Wait, how's that possible? He's got school, he works for me, it can't be 40.
But it's so heartbreaking when you think about the fact that he was kicked out by his parents, sent to live with a relative, Luke, who, sorry, but like, he doesn't know this guy. And then when he pisses Luke off, Luke kicks him out too, so he's basically homeless for a bit. And he goes to find his father rejects him again. And I mean, I think he did pretty well. I mean, he knew he needed to work, he knew he needed to make money.
Then you gotta go.
I'm not saying like Jess is like a good guy. Like, the way he ghosted Rory and treated her was really traumatizing for her. Like, he's got a lot of issues, but I do think it's interesting when you consider that one of... How do I explain this? I'm explaining this badly. One of the reasons why people liked Rory with Logan is because he was carefree, right? Because he could take her to all these cool dates, because he could make time for her, because he could give her what she needed. He could propose, and he could like say, come live with me in my apartment. And he was just so like happy. He made life exciting. He took her on all these activities. But a big reason why he had that attitude was because of his money, because of the fact that he could buy that time. Half of the reason Jess treated her bad was, yes, his own like trauma and personality issues, but the other half was the fact that he was literally stressing about, you know, his mum hating him and like where he would live and how he'd pay rent. He and Logan are like in completely different situations, and frankly, like, Jess had more important things to worry about than like if he was going to go out with Rory or not. So I guess the point I make is that privilege makes a big difference in dating.
Will you marry me?
I will say though that I'm glad she didn't end up with Jess, because I feel like he had unrealistic fantasies about Rory, in the same way that Dean like also like idealized her a little bit and treated her like a prize as opposed to a real human being, a real relationship. They both treated her like something they could win. And I think it's really shown when, you know, he comes back after ghosting her in, it's like season 4, season 5, I don't know. He sees that she's in a relationship with Logan, and, you know, he finds out she dropped out of Yale. I was criticizing Logan and how Logan's just this loser trust fund kid, the kind of guy that Rory would have laughed at in the past and never wanted to go out with, which is funny because like he's not seeing that like the duality of who Rory is. Like, you know, of course she would go out with someone like Logan, and then like he finds out she dropped out of Yale and suddenly he's yelling at her and criticizing her for dropping out of Yale. And sure, like, it's a great scene, but also I find it a bit odd that he's saying that he knows her better than anyone else. Like, I just think the audacity of him to ghost her and treat her terribly, and show up after 2 years and then try and like make a claim and pass judgment on her. Like, Yes, that's what everyone wants, is their ex showing up and like judging them for their life choices. You know what I mean? And like give you a lecture, like as if that's what she wanted. And also it seems so like judgmental, as if he had this box in his mind about like the kind of person that she was, and then he like condemns her when she's not that person.
I'm gonna sit here as long as I like, and I'm gonna do whatever I like, and if you don't like it, then just ignore me and pay attention to your boyfriend.
I thought that was wild personally, so I'm glad that she didn't end up with him. But then we have Logan, which is really interesting because again, he's like, as I said, the wealthy heir, embodying everything Lorelai tried to run away from. I still think it's crazy Rory turned down that marriage proposal. Like, I don't know whether she didn't quite realize how much money Logan has, but like I think she should have thought a bit more carefully about it, you know what I mean? Because it's estimated, because of like their businesses, their old money ties, that the Huntzbergers bring in around $200 million per year. And Logan casually gifted Rory a $46,000 Birkin bag. Mitchum owned 13 newspapers, and the family laughs after Logan sinks their yacht in Indonesia.
That's ridiculous. He's a Huntzberger. An offer like this doesn't come around every day.
It's a marriage proposal, not a sale on linens.
And actually, the Gilmore Girls creator based the Huntzbergers on the Sulzberger family, who own the New York Times. So yeah, it's safe to say that they're easily the most rich family in the entire show. That's information I got from an article from the Tab titled From Private Jets to a 38,000 Birkin, How Rich Really Was Everyone in Gilmore Girls. That was the article. So I don't know how accurate that is, but like I wouldn't be surprised. What I think again is important to note is the idea of consequences, because Logan kept redoing semester after semester at Yale and just delaying his graduation, right? And he only did it when his dad really pushed him to actually graduate. He was expelled from 5 boarding schools due to bad behavior. He pulled a crazy prank in the classroom at uni. He sunk a yacht, stole another, and yet he still ended up with a company, right? And with a massive trust fund, right? Whereas Jess misses a bunch of days at school because he's working at Walmart to earn money and he gets kicked out. So no, they're not the same. So I'm painting a pretty bad view of Logan, I guess, as someone that has no respect for the law and is just fucking around and hurting himself and doing crazy pranks with his friends. But I guess that's part of the reason why I like Logan, is because he's brave and adventurous, and people act like his only identity is like skipping school. But the thing about Logan is that he's extremely charming, he is witty, and I feel like he matches Rory at such an intellectual level that when they have a conversation, the dialogue between them is so fire. Like the actual chemistry, the way that they have a conversation, they bounce the dialogue off each other so beautifully. Like he's super sharp, super funny. I feel like it's exactly the kind of guy that she needs. But the thing that really struck me about Logan, which is completely separate from his money, by the way, is the fact that when they're together, they have a real relationship that's very drama-free, in my opinion, with overall a few issues in communication. But aside from that, like they move in together, they have the most long-standing relationship that's just super fun and super healthy compared to the other ones. And he also treats her as a real human being with flaws, who he isn't even super keen about at the start. Like, he's getting to know her. He's not sure if he wants a relationship. Like, he's not desperate. And again, like, he doesn't put her on a pedestal. In fact, he isn't dependent on her to the point that he calls her out when she does something wrong. And that was when she was pretending she was an outsider in his world, writing an article about the trust fund kids at the school. And it obviously rubbed him in the wrong way. And he told her, Rory, like, you're one of us, stop acting like you're not. And because she's ignorant of her own privilege, Logan, because he's aware of his own privilege, thought that she was just taking it way too far, and he said as much.
Where do you get off acting all morally superior?
That is not what I intended to say at all.
You clearly think you are. Why? Because you read Ironweed? Because you saw Norma Ray?
And I don't think it's just the fact that her article is critiquing the elite. It's the fact that he and 2 other girls said that her article is mean-spirited. I like Logan, and I felt that he also tried really hard to win over Lorelai, and he tried to like fit into her life. And I also feel like he and Rory are kind of a perfect match for each other in that way. And she also never seemed to like get bored of him like she did with Dean. Like, you know, she seemed to stay on her toes with Logan, and obviously was never like kind of constantly like zoning out and like bored and that kind of thing. But I do think it's interesting how, you know, Richard and Emily had no problem with Logan. In fact, they were in love with him because they're so classist. And that actually gets me into Luke, because they had a massive problem with Luke, Richard and Emily. Like, even though they saw the sparks between Luke and Lorelai, they were so against Luke and Lorelai being together. And 100% it's because of the fact that Luke doesn't present as someone that's like one of the elite. He's not. He's just well off, but he's not like super, super rich. I want to talk about Luke because, again, of the fake working class aesthetic, because there's this narrative presented, especially with the way Richard and Emily talk about Luke, as if he's this unambitious loser who's like not doing well in life and like isn't successful and is poor. Luke, first of all, is not poor. Luke is very financially savvy, and he's presented as like the blue collar foil to Lorelai and the Gilmores, because I guess he doesn't have a good taste of style, so he's always wearing the same baseball cap and plaid shirt. But let's be clear, like, even though he may be coded as a working class man as like a contrast, and Emily never approved of him, he was never truly poor. Like, he owns a thriving business in a central part of Stars Hollow. He lives above the diner rights. He's not like paying rent technically. He later inherits his uncle's building. He's got a ton of savings, and as Richard said, his business has potential because if he wants, he can convert it into a chain, right? So Luke is solidly like middle class in terms of assets. He may be like gruff, but he's very, very stable. He has a lot of savings. He dishes out like 30K or something crazy for the inn and for, I think, offering money for something else Lorelai needed help with. And he is always teeming with customers.
I own this business, kid. I built it. This is mine. I'm not at the mercy of some boss waiting and hoping to be chosen employee of the month for a couple extra $100 and a plaque. I'm always employee of the month. I'm employee of the year, of the century, of the universe. You should be so lucky to have a job like mine.
He even bought a house for him and Lorelai, so he was more than financially equipped to like provide for a family, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so therefore, Emily and Richard's hatred of him, for me, it was just insane. We know that even though Christopher, for example, inherits a bunch of money and gets super rich, Christopher he's been flunking off school, and he had multiple failed business enterprises early on in the show. He was a loser. He took no responsibility for anything. But as for Luke, like, he has been like a successful business owner for most of his life. He's an entrepreneur, okay? Like, he's an entrepreneur. And I think another example of a character who's shown genuine working class struggle as opposed to like sort of this fake one like Rory and Lorelai is Lane, because, you know, her mother owns a small antique store and lives frugally. And later, Lane herself works multiple jobs. She lives in a cramped apartment and she raises twins with Zach on a tiny budget. And she doesn't have wealthy grandparents to call up if things get serious. Like, she doesn't have anyone to rely on aside from herself. And her narrative shows the actual limitations of a working class life. Like, genuine struggle, genuinely knowing you cannot rely on anyone.
The yellow squash.
Yes. They're a delicacy. We're going to steam them along with the broccoli.
Is that adult broccoli? Can you do that with baby squash?
Yes, it's very high in oxidants.
Welcome home, babe.
And Lorelai acted as if her and Rory were like in some sort of destitute situation, like her and Lane, which I thought was so funny because they're literally not. And I still remember like when she considered Rory someone that needed to go on like the financial aid scholarship or something like that, and then they declined it because they saw that Richard had this savings or something and it was always meant for Rory, so he sent Rory like 70K, which who has the grandfather that just kind of randomly sends them 70K? Like, no one. And then Lorelai actually sent it back to him because she was like, look, this can pay off any expenses from Chilton, so there you go. So she didn't even save, she just returned Richard's own money to him. So it's like, whatever, but she was like, take it, because like this will cover, you know, because you paid for Chilton, so this is my way of like paying you back. See, she's giving his own gift back to him, I don't know. But like, I remember then she was acting as if that's totally normal, and she's calling the school like, listen, I know we just got gifted 70k, but I gave it back though. The money's gone now. And the thing is, Rory really needs this money. It'd be such a shame. Like, she really needs the scholarship. Like, no, I'm sorry, but there's other kids that are like way more deserving of financial aid than you and your daughter. Like, this is actually a joke. Like, it was so funny to me. Like, it was genuinely so funny. So I do think that a lot of the time there's a lack of acknowledgement from the narrative about like Rory and Lorelai's actual financial situation, because like it or not, they are Gilmores. So I think it's definitely a show about how wealth, class and privilege will follow you no matter how far you run, because no matter how much Lorelai wanted to reject it, and she was genuinely happy to marry someone like Luke and just live a really nice, comfortable life, Rory wasn't. Rory was very much enjoying throwing the gala events with Emily, and she chose Logan. She rejected Dean. Like, she wanted to be a part of that life. Whether people want to admit it or not, Rory was very much intrigued, and she actually kind of liked it. When it comes to class, the show asks us to slow down and think about the choices we make and the ones we didn't even realize we had. Thank you so much for watching, and you can continue binge watching my Gilmore Girls playlist. I'll link it right after this video so you can see all the rest in this series. Bye guys.